Hi, welcome to Simmery P. Are you curious how to make spelt burger buns or spelt bread rolls or spelt dinner rolls? I had a request from one of my viewers, Vanessa. Hi Vanessa from Malta. She was trying to make them light and fluffy. I've tried a few times and never could find the right balance of moisture and flour, but I've finally done it. So if you'd like to see how to make my spelt buns, come with me and let's see. So I've got everything ready to go. We're using 500 grams of white spelt flour. I've got some instant yeast, sugar, salt, sesame seeds for the top. We're adding an egg to the mix and we've got some milk. We've got a teaspoon of instant yeast or fast yeast, but we're just going to activate that slightly before we mix it in with the flour. And I've got, no, not that salt. Don't add salt to the yeast because it stops it activating. We want a teaspoon of sugar. And I've got some warm water here. It's just tap water, nothing fancy. So I just want to add 50 mils of that. So when you put your hand in, it's lukewarm. It's not too cold and not too hot, because if it's too hot, it'll deactivate this. So we just want 50 mils. And I'm just going to use a whisk and stir that for a bit. So we just need to let that sit for about 10 to 15 minutes until it goes all bubbly. And then you can ensure that you have fluffy bread rolls. So let's pop that to one side. In the meantime, I've got 250 mils of milk, and I'm using oat milk today because that's what I always have on hand, and I don't drink a lot of cow's milk, but use cow's milk if that's what you've got. So I'm just going to heat this up behind me. We just want to take the chill off it and make sure it's lukewarm. So our yeast mix here is all bubbly and activated. So I'm going to pour that into my large stand mixer. And if you didn't have a stand mixer, you could do this by hand. And I've got a teaspoon of salt, just regular salt. And we've got our warm milk here. As I said, I'm using oat milk, and you just put your finger in and it's just not too warm, not too hot. So we're going to put most of that in. I'm just going to reserve a little bit. So a tip for when you're making dough, you mix it until it comes away from the side. So just while that's incorporated, we want to get one egg, and I'm going to separate it. I'm going to put the egg yolk into the rest of this milk mix here. We're going to use the white for the top. So I'm just going to mix that through. I'm going to pour that in. And the other thing to help it be super moist is olive oil. So I'm just going to add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil as well. Just increase my speed slightly. And depending what flour you use, if you swap it out and use a different flour, like a wholemeal spelt flour, just keep an eye on the moisture. You may need to add like a little bit more milk. Okay, it's quite moist and stretchy, and it's pulled away from the sides, which is perfect, and that's what we want. I'm just going to flour my hands, and I'm going to remove that and just have a look at how it is. So it's quite moist and it's quite springy. I think we're good to just let it rest now. So what we need to do, either cover your dough ball with some plastic wrap on your bowl. I'm just forming that into a nice ball. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour to the base, or you can use olive oil. Pop that back in, put a little bit on top. We just need to let this rest in a warm spot for about an hour and a half, depending on how warm your kitchen is or how warm your house is. And if you don't have plastic wrap on hand and you want to be environmentally friendly, you can use the damp tea towel. I've got this lid that comes with this size bowl, so I'm just adding that on. And we'll let that rest, and we'll come back once it's doubled in size, which usually takes, as I said, about an hour and a half. So it's been just over an hour and we're back with our dough. And if you touch it, it springs back. So that's done and ready to go. So I've just got some spelt flour here. I'm just going to dust a little bit on my bench. So what we do is we weigh that on our scales. So that's 833, and I just use my calculator, 833 divided by 9. So we roughly want dough balls of about 90. I might make them a little bit larger and make them about just under 100 each. So I'm going to do 8. So we'll try and get 8 even ones. So that's 100. So what we do, we stretch it out and then fold it back in. So we want to form a little tight dough ball. And then we roll it a little bit on the bench to help you form the ball. We want to make sure that the bottom is sealed as well. So we just pop it over onto the bottom, and then we don't want a round roll, we want a flat roll. And we just place it on this, I'm doing it on a large tray, and I've just prepared that with a silicone mat, or you can use baking paper. So we want roughly about 100 each. Okay, make sure they're not too close together. So I've got them quite spaced. Now just make sure they're squished down to about 2 centimeters thick, and then we need to grab that egg white that you had from before. And if you've got a pastry brush, that's great. You can just use your pastry brush. We just want to dab the tops with this egg white, which is called an egg white wash. And this gives it a really nice glaze. I find the egg white easier to go on than using a whole egg. It slides on more easily. Okay, that's done. And now I've got a little jar of sesame seeds, so I'm going to sprinkle them on top. Not completely necessary, but I love the crunch of sesame seeds. Or if you've got poppy seeds, you can pop them on. Pop some poppy seeds on. And then we just let it rest for another 30 to 40 minutes for the second proof. And this time I'm going to put a damp tea towel just on top, and then we need to pop our oven on. We need to put it on really high at 200 degrees C, which is gas mark 7 or 425 Fahrenheit. So I'm going to pop that on now, and I'll pop my timer on here. So it's been about 45 minutes and I've let these prove again. Now I'm going to pop them in the oven and bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes until they're golden brown. But before we bake them, what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of water to create a bit more steam to keep them moist and fluffy. So I'm adding that to the bottom tray, and then I'll slide the tray in. I'll pop it on for 15 minutes and then come back and check them. And I look forward to showing you what they look like. So here's my spelt buns, all cooked. They took 15 minutes and they're light and fluffy, so I can't wait to eat them tonight. The shapes aren't perfect, but I'm not a factory. So if you've liked my video today, hit the thumbs up, share it with a friend. Don't forget, consider subscribing if you're new here today, and you might want to jump over to suemarieP.com where I've got the full recipe, and I'll pop a link to the description in the description below. Stick around, I'll show you a few other recipes up here, some spelt ideas, and I'll see you next time. Bye.